Welcome. We are so excited that you can join us here for this session on the development and ultimate implementation of the strategic plan. It's been a couple of years of really hard and amazing work, and we have some of the leaders of the strategic plan here. And we're going to have just a little bit of an informal Q&A session now that you all will get a chance to listen to, which will hopefully go into some of the backstory, some of the highlights, and really hopefully answer any questions. At the end, I'll be happy to share my email address, and if you have any specific questions for the committee, you can email me and I will get those to them. My name is Will Francis, and I am the Executive Director of the National Association of Social Workers Texas Chapter. And now I would love for the committee themselves to introduce themselves.
All right.
Go ahead, Judy.
I knew this would happen. Judy Schlotzauer, I'm membership engagement, and I am on the board of directors from Capital Area Region 7.
I'm Brandy Felder. Oh, go ahead, Kathleen. I'm just going to wait.
I'm Kathleen Jordan, and I am co-chair of the Advocacy Committee, and I'm a professor at the School of Social Work at UT Arlington, and this is my co-chair.
David Corey. I have a small private practice, and I'm basically retired from CPS. Angela?
I'm Angela Martinez. I work for the Department of State Health Services. I'm also on the board out of Lubbock, and I am on the branding committee.
Brandy, you want to go next?
Sure, I'm Brandy Felderhoff. I'm vice president to the board for NASW Texas, and I'm currently faculty at Texas Women's University in the Joint Master of Social Work program. I served as the subcommittee chair for Sustainable Organization Systems.
And I'm Stephen Parks with the Houston branch, and I'm spearheading the Committee on Social Work Professionalism. And I'm a social worker in practice, private practice, and at the University of Houston, I teach.
Hi, I'm Jaehee Chung Sherman, or Melanie Chung Sherman. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and supervisor. I'm also the Region 3 NASW Texas Board of Representative, and I have a private practice, as well as I'm a senior psychotherapist and supervisor at the University of Texas at Dallas's Student Counseling Center, and it's an honor to be here.
And thank you, team. And one of the things that you're going to notice is this is going to be a warts and all recording. I've never been in a recording where somebody didn't sort of talk over each other. That's part of the fun of all being in different places virtually due to the pandemic. But that in some ways really is what this process was like. It was really about a whole bunch of people getting together and taking steps forward and back, building things that we then took down, figuring out where more work was needed, by ourselves. So really, I think there's a great sort of reflection of the process here in how we're all basically giving our best and trying to do the best we can given the format and the circumstance. So the first question that I wanted to put out there for y'all was really just what the process was like. If you could just talk a little bit about being here from sort of the beginning to the end, working in your small groups with your teams, working in the larger group, really what was it like to be a leader in the strategic plan?
Well, this is Judy. I'll go first. Not that I was one of the first members, but I took over membership recruitment a couple years ago before really we started the strategic plan. And it then morphed into the strategic plan. But when I first took it over and developed a group, it was just amazing to me that this was an issue we were starting to talk about now. I had no idea about all the things I would learn during this process. You know, I've been a member for a long time. I'm like ancient, and you know, it was when we first started out, of course, we did phone calls and then started doing Zoom. So doing stuff in the pandemic was just almost like secondhand to us. But I learned a whole lot during doing this, and it made me really appreciate all the things that NASW does and the NSW staff and all of you volunteers out there. It's really been a great process.
This
Yeah,
is Kathleen, and I'll go next. We also came in a little bit late to the process. We started working on the advocacy committee last year, and the reason was a lot of the members that had been on it prior became kind of overwhelmed with their workload and didn't have the time to continue to work on advocacy. And so David and I took it over, and we've had a really good experience working with this team. We feel like we've gotten really good feedback to help us improve our section of the strategic plan, our advocacy section, and we've just enjoyed working with everyone. Everyone's been very committed and working very hard.
Yeah, I would echo that. I believe everybody has put in a great deal of effort to try to come up with a product that we can all benefit from, and hopefully the organization can benefit from going into the future. It's been interesting. I disappeared for a moment ago because we have a alarm that goes off periodically for some reason that I don't know why, and we can't stop it. And so there are these kind of interruptions to the technical process that have posed challenges to us, and that happens in our individual meetings, and it's happening in our presentation. So bear with us, and I think that listen between the lines. Hopefully there will be some information that will be of use to you and your branch as we go forward. Angela?
I think it was so interesting because I really did think I knew about branding, and it wasn't until I started meeting with my small subcommittee that I really understood the whole process. And normally you start with a big idea and you narrow it down and flesh it out. And with this, it was talking about branding and getting the information out. And then once we brought it back to the whole strategic plan, it was really opening it back up, which was interesting to see, and trying to see what overlaps and how we can help each other. I think that the narrowing and then the expanding has been really interesting over the last year.
I'd have to agree. Unlike some of the others, maybe like Judy, I've been on the committee since the start here. This was my first experience with a strategic planning initiative. So as volunteer leadership with NASW, it was really interesting for me to kind of get an idea of what all goes into that strategic planning process, how we consider the items that we do, and really even the things that started to come up as we were developing the strategic plan, like within our community, within society, how we could incorporate those to make sure that we are being as mindful as possible of what's happening in the field for everyone, and how we can include that in our efforts going forward. I've really enjoyed it, even though it's been a long process for us, and really getting a good understanding of how kind of NASW operates more fully.
Yeah, I want to add on to that, Brandy. I think this has been a really interesting intersection of local leadership working at state level and at national level. And it's been interesting to see how much social workers can collaborate across all these different levels to put something together. I think also this group just working on this has been kind of supportive, because we have seen so much happening while we were on these kind of weekly calls, meeting and checking in with each other. And it reminds me so much that power of community, and having our peers there to support us as things happen all over the state.
Hi, this is Jackie. I'm relatively very, very new to this process, and be very honest, was intermittently involved, not to the extent as my colleagues were. And so really appreciate their commitment and their focus related to this plan that has been really in the works for a very long time. So it was also revealing related to all the workings of NASW as an organization, but more so about the connections and advocacy work here at the ground level. And I think so often social workers will see from national what is broadcasted, but really to understand how dynamic our profession, how dynamic the work is here on the ground in Texas was quite phenomenal. So hopefully this will inspire other social workers here in Texas specifically, and also serve as a model for other chapters and other branches throughout the nation to really look at the dedication and the work that we can do as social workers when we collaborate together.
Yeah, and I jumped in midstream too. My predecessor, Miriam Nissenbaum, started this, and then I was fortunate enough to take over, and I can just attest to how hard everyone worked on this, whether they were here from the beginning or whether they stepped in. It's been a huge lift, and I really hope, especially that by the time y'all are hearing this, you've had a chance to comment on this and add your own input to it, because we really do hope that you continue to share with us where you feel the direction should go. Speaking of the plan itself, are there any highlights that y'all would like to mention? Is there anything from your section, maybe one or two or however many specific items that you think really sort of capture some of the work you've done, or something that you're very excited about where the association will be headed?
Not all at once. I always use that with my students.
Judy again, maybe we should just go down the line, or I don't know, Stephen, go ahead. Were you gonna?
I like that plan actually, Judy. Let's go down the line because I think that keeps us in order.
We know, yeah. Anyway, what I was thinking back on the highlights, and I think one of the things that kind of got me a little more excited in membership was, first of all, getting people to think about why they're a member, why did they join, and looking at how we can recruit members or get members to realize how important their professional organization is for them. And then the other thing is just that I got excited about the idea of how important it is to engage new leadership and diverse leadership in our membership, and begin now. We need leaders. You know, we've got to find volunteer leaders at our branches, and those to me are the two most important things in the membership engagement that came out of our meetings.
We really identified two themes that were important in advocacy. And the first one is mobilization, and to mobilize different groups. And that was a very exciting concept to work on because, like Judy said, membership is so important in recruiting new leadership. And so we worked on some ideas of how to recruit and bring into the advocacy effort young social workers, old social workers, everybody, the membership, as well as policy experts that we might find in schools of social work or in agencies, and also students who knew the future of social work. And then we also worked on partnerships.
And partnerships really get to a basic of social work, I think, of relationship, and trying to find ways, not in just a one-shot effort, but over time, to use relationship to strengthen our advocacy work. And to that end, we're encouraging contacts throughout the year with legislators and with partner groups. One major effort we'll talk about in the presentation is also League of Women Voters. And so finding ways that at the branch level, we can be connected throughout the year, so that when we do have a advocacy position to talk about, we're not strangers walking in for the first
With branding, you know, Texas is so big and so diverse, and rural and big cities, and our branches are really reflect that. You know, some of them have are smaller branches, some of them are larger branches, some of them have a lot more access to resources. Excuse me. I think with branding, we really wanted to increase visibility and increase awareness of NASW. So for that, it's as small as getting every branch a tablecloth with NASW Texas on that, so we have that consistency and visibility. Also, increasing access, so really being able to live stream events on Facebook or Instagram, or even putting it up on YouTube, so so all members really are able to have that access.
And kind of representing professionalism or social work profession, me and Angela kind of overlapped a little bit with our committees, because I felt that our committee was at this intersection between being a member of NASW and being a social work profession. How does being a member add value to your career and your professional goals as a social worker? And I think that's really about connecting the social workers that we already have. So many of us, especially me, I can speak from being very clinical oriented. I can get kind of stuck in my little silo. This is my caseload, this is my job. And I forget that there's a lot of other programs that we're developing and that other social workers are developing, and successes and ideas. And the more we can share those, I think, as Will said, it makes it a much easier lift when we're all working together and sharing those resources and ideas. And so that was really what we tried to do in our group, was figure out how do we keep these more local events going and growing, so that social workers make those connections in between us, and we can grow the resources that we have and be a resource more to each other. And so I'm excited about some of the ideas that we put forth for that.
Yeah, and with sustainable organization systems, originally in the strategic plan, and I mentioned this in the slide a little bit, we had a number of initiatives. And as we went through and began working on the plan and identifying strategies and actionable items we could do to meet those objectives, what we realized was that really all of these things fed into other parts of the plan. And we were going, oh, this is really kind of a membership thing, or oh, this is really kind of a branding thing. And so Will and I met and talked and really decided that the scope of my committee specifically should really be to put kind of hands on that whole plan and make sure that it kind of flows well, that it meshes well, and that whatever we're putting into place, we have the ability to sustain throughout the period of this specific strategic plan. Say that 3 times fast. And that we as an organization have the ability to sustain it, so that we're not putting too much on our staff, on our volunteer leaders, that the work is spread equally throughout various positions and all of that. And then as some things began to really happen this year, we had this additional piece come up that didn't come out of our original assessment, but that we wanted to make sure we included, which was around our diversity policies and procedures and anti-racism work for social workers and for the organization. And so I'll let Jahi talk a little bit on that, because that's really been her piece, and it now falls under what's been my subcommittee in the strategic plan.
Randy. Yeah, so particularly with the rise, what has always been here, but has been revealed after the pandemic, through the groundwork and the groundswell of the voices of Black Lives Matter, the murders of one too many Black individuals, and the ongoing racial and intersectional identity pieces that have impacted both members and the clients that we serve. The voices have been heard, and they have been raised collectively within NASW. So we've established under one subcommittee is also a diversity analysis committee that I have a slide on specifically, but the integration of all these pieces that each individual has already talked about, my colleagues looking at the sustainability and the equitability of resources. And this also comes in part in working in terms of labor. Where is the work being held? Where is the work? You know, who is providing these services, and what are the identities within not just membership in terms of, wow, this is who we are, but it really is looking through an anti-racist, anti-oppression lens, which is something that as NASW, as we move and transform what that's going to look like now and in the future. And these will involve challenging conversations that we've already had intercollegially, but then also as membership. And so we are looking forward to seeing how this itself, as it's new, will be able to be applied within our membership, and also to provide some framework as well, again, for other chapters and branches, looking at expanding what the possibilities could be. That is grounded in our code of ethics and our value work as social workers.
I appreciate that immensely. I think it really, all of y'all's responses really lead into the next question, but I do want to highlight that point you made there, Jahi, which is really that this is about something, Texas modeling something, and that others, be it branch or another state, can really turn to. And I really do appreciate that there is some of that. This isn't just about our own internal work, but this is how we hopefully spur social work growth across the country and beyond. So really, how do you all think that this is going to shape NASW Texas, I guess specifically, but feel free to talk larger. How is this going to shape where we head as a chapter? And what do you all see as necessary for the next round of leadership to help sustain this? Where are we going, and how can people keep us going there?
Well, I think back to what Jay Lee was saying and what we're all saying is that I think it's going to shape us by increasing diversity in the organization. I think that's a recognition we're all making and realizing. And I'm especially encouraged to see it in the development of new and younger leaders in our volunteer leadership.
We've certainly had many challenges lately, challenges to equity, challenges to in our leadership particularly. And we want to, as NASW, to be aware of those challenges and to be one of the leading groups in terms of meeting those challenges and advocating for diversity and advocating for equity and social justice. So I think what advocacy has to contribute to that effort is the partnerships, identifying important partners like Black Lives Matter, for example, and getting these groups together in a way where we can make some significant impacts in the direction that our country is going, really.
Absolutely, and moving away from those silos that Stephen was talking about, and really getting the cross participation between branches, and having that hopefully accessibility to technology and digital platforms that that branding would be able to assist with.
And
I think oh, go ahead, Stephen. Sorry, I was jumping ahead.
It's okay. I think too, I hear a lot of empowerment in all of our talks as we've been going through. I feel like this is going to empower social workers. You know, we've always been on the front lines of helping people, and I think now there's a big recognition, especially this year, that we need to be on the front lines of change and making change happen, because we are at that crossroads of many organizations. We are active in leadership, and together we have a very powerful collective voice. And I think this is a platform that those ideas need to find growth in, or can find growth in, and that together we can push those ideas forward further. And I think that's one of the things that we've been really encouraging and talking about kind of on the back end, and we're happy to share the plan so that social workers can really step into that platform. Go ahead, Brandy.
I think what I was going to say is just that I think even without COVID, this was a big year of transition. You know, we are in, especially in Texas for social workers, we're transitioning to a new board structure and system. There are a lot of changes that come with that. We have an executive director that's now been with us for a year. You know, there's for NASW Texas, there's a lot of shifts happening. And then you add in the political climate, the anti-racist work that needs to happen. Of course, COVID happening in a global pandemic and how that is changing the way that we practice. And I think it's a really exciting time for us as an organization to be considering kind of how we want to make an impact, how we want to be of service to social workers in the state. And it also is a great opportunity for us to make sure that we maintain relevancy and connection to practitioners, and that we're doing the work that matters most, not only to our clients, but also to social workers who are providing for those clients.
Yeah, and echoing what everyone has already shared with the work that has been done through the years, and in whatever fashion, we appreciate the feedback. We appreciate questions and the curiosity, because it will take the collective of voices of social workers and NASW members, and also opening up the relevance of those who are non-members, and what are we missing? What are we not? And I think that also then speaks to the intersectionality. And then again, what Brandy was sharing out is a time of transformation, a time of also of this transition, of what this looks like for not only to sustain membership currently, but then what is this going to look like in the next 1 year, 2 years, 5 years out in terms of leadership. And one thing that is very close in terms of the work that is being done and actively being discussed from the top down, we're hearing more of, and to really see this collectively and also consistently, is representative inclusion that is diverse, more than just being able to say it in performative ways, that we have this individual who represents this, that the labor isn't on one individual, but an organizational flow. And so the accessibility of the strategic plan, we found it is really important that this is accessible for all to see who have an active interest. Where is this going and where have we come from? And I think that is going to be incredibly important for the viability of our profession. Because without NASW and without the advocacy here on the state level and your local level, that is what we're talking about. So without that, even the movement of the transitions with VHAC and the transitions that are happening with clinical reimbursement, all the work that has been done on the ground, we really want to elevate that, but you wouldn't know that without having access to this. And so we really want to encourage y'all to do that. And that is how we sustain membership as well, and also inspire the next generation of NASW members. And then just, well, great, this is what we do. How do you get involved for your profession?
Yeah, I thank you all for that. You highlight a really interesting point, I think. In one way, when this started and there wasn't COVID and racism wasn't in the public's consciousness the way it should have been, we see ourselves in a very different space right now than at the beginning of this plan. And yet at the other end of it, this plan is hopefully, because of the way y'all built it, able to respond to different outside pressures like that, because we don't know where the country will be going here through the next election and into the next couple of years. So I think it's that really interesting piece of where the landscape both looks different based on where we're at, and how do you build sort of a steady boat to ride out through any of these challenges that we'll be facing. And I think you all did an amazing job of that. And again, like each of you have highlighted, it's built for new leadership. It's built to be steered by the next board, the next set of branch chairs, the next set of student leaders, those who want to be engaged in this. I think it's fantastic. And you all really sort of answered my next question, which is how important is member input, but feel free to jump to that. But I maybe just want to come to how or what do you all think are some of the long-term challenges that are going to be facing both social work as well as NASW here? How does this plan really need to be ready to help both elevate the association, but even more importantly, social workers and the clients that we work with?
Well, I think for membership, one of the challenges is going to be recruiting and retaining members and making us a viable and important organization for people to belong to. There's a lot of competition, other organizations for clinicians and workers to be involved in, and there's also a cost. And all of those things have to be brought into play. We need to be looking at, like we've all talked about, more work with other organizations to come up with ideas to sustain all of us. And I remember when I first started, one of my committee members said that I think our members need to realize that the advocacy that NASW does is done because of the membership we pay, and that advocacy is for the people we work with, and that's what we need to remind our members about. So that is, I think it's just going to be communication, reminding, and continuing to work on this, and not losing interest, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with you, Judy, and I also want to come back to something that Angela said earlier about how we are a very diverse state, and that we've got the rural areas that, especially west of I-35, that are geographically the biggest part of the state with the smallest population, and yet they have political clout the way our system works. And what the membership, what our membership is positioned to do by the virtue of the way we're organized with our different 26 branches that cover all 254 counties, they can talk to the legislators and the agency heads and personnel in the areas where no other other organizations would be more challenged to do. And when we're in such a polarized time where one political party doesn't even want to acknowledge that there is racism, and another political party is very much on the other side, we need to come together and come together in ways that can build a understanding. And the rural conservative folks realize that you don't have to be untrue to your values to recognize that there are some things that need to be changed in the way that we've dealt with our society. And so I'm rambling, but that's what I think the opportunity that this plan gives us is that we get social work raised in awareness of our values, better understood throughout the state.
Oh, Angela, you're on mute.
I'm muted, I'm sorry. Thank you. It's having those values raised, but also it's having a pride in our professionalism, I think, and really having we should have as much clout as the APA and medical associations, and really being a part of that, and knowing that we can, with the changing demographics of our members, we should take pride in all of that. I'm also rambling.
Well, and I was going to add that I think, yes, our country is facing so many problems right now. If we look at COVID and racial oppression and a faltering economy, and I think the only way we're going to get out of any of those problems is by really empowering social workers and returning to this heyday where we had a lot of social supportive programs. And it's social workers that that we ran those programs to get kids the meals that they need, to get to lower the anxiety in the classroom and in families, and to help with mental health. There are so many things that we as social workers, we are already trained to do. I think what we really recognize now is the need, and I think the political will is coming to create and really grab back that political power to fund these programs, because so many are in need. And so I think we're just kind of making this initiative happen now is like really gearing us towards what I hope to be over the next few years is us reclaiming a kind of social work perspective and a renaissance where we really reinvest in all of the communities that we come from across the state. And I think we need that now more than ever. And together we can advocate for that. So, and I rambled a little bit in there. Brandy, you want to go next?
I don't know that I do want to go next because I don't know what I'll say that you all haven't already touched on. You know, and as each person talked, I thought, oh yeah, you know, I can think of an example of that, or oh, I can think of an example of that. One that really stood out to me was when Angela was talking about like our clout and as compared to an organization like APA. I actually teach the DSM course for our students in our Joint Master of Social Work program, and we were talking this last week about how there's only one social worker that sat on the committee for the development of the DSM-5, yet we make up over half of the workforce of mental health professionals providing those services. And just the irony in that, you know, one social worker versus like, I think it's 162 committee members. And yet we're over half of the professionals out there providing these services. And so, you know, the question Will asked was like the biggest challenges we're going to address with the strategic plan. And honestly, I don't know what that is. I think we can all have some hope for what that will be, but really what's going to determine that is the engagement with it from our volunteer leadership and our members. And so personally, I'm really excited about it, but I think there's also a little bit of anxiety wrapped up in any level of excitement because there's just that element of unknown.
I think just before kind of wrapping up, I think one of the bigger challenges that I'm hearing from the ground, that I'm hearing from both members and non-members, is the retention and sustainability long-term. And it does come back. It comes back into intersectionality and diversity, the representation, the gatekeeping that has been related to who has access and who doesn't, to membership and how, you know, what does this look like long term? What does NASW represent? And when we're really looking across all of the profound work that we do as social workers, I think one of the other very real pieces is that we may not always find consensus in agreement about what initiatives that we are involved with or their perspectives. But I think there's one thing overall when we sit and we complete our graduate studies or undergrad studies, or sit, if you know, individuals have the opportunity to sit for licensure, what does that look like then in terms of a professional organization that has a representative body, which has been NASW? And I think that is going to be one of the bigger challenges as we move forward within the engagement of new members and also current members as well, because we are seeing the impacts of what is happening right now. That I'm being really honest, that COVID has just exposed what has already been here in terms of the disparities, in terms of injustice. And so members want to see not only themselves represented intersectionality wise. It is more than just racial, but sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, disability status, all these different things, religious minorities. Who represents me and how does that look, not just on the state level, but on the branch level? And why would I then, am I going to submit time and commit to this process? And will these individuals represent my needs? And I think there's a bidirectional challenge that's going on right now. And I think that then we have tremendous opportunity to move that forward, but we can't do that without a professional organization. And why I believe so deeply in myself, at least, in NASW and the work that has been done for over 100 years of what we've done as a profession and what we can do from here in the future on out. I'd rather have these arguments or have these intense conversations collectively than subjugated and dispersed, because there's a lot of competing factors for members right now, and a lot of other professions who are literally talking about social justice and equity work that we've been doing. This is our wheelhouse, and this is an amazing opportunity to reclaim our wheelhouse.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. This has been an amazing discussion. You all have had so much to share. Again, I can't thank you enough for all you've done for the strategic plan, for just how important you've been in shaping the future of NASW. If anyone has any questions for this amazing panel, feel free to email me. You can head on over to our website, naswtx.org, and look up staff, and you'll find my email address there, and I'll be happy to pass it along. And if you're interested in being involved in the next round of strategic planning, think about a leadership position. Think about joining the board or serving as a branch chair or getting on NLIC or in any other way, really joining the NASW leadership community, because we really do move on membership. That's how we go. And as has been so eloquently said here, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And this is really a way of ensuring, hopefully, that NASW Texas is at many, many tables. Thank you all again. I appreciate it. And we will say goodbye. So everyone take care.
Thank you.